Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we have a special guest, George Sotiropoulos. I've known George over decades, and we're gonna just catch up, find out how he's doing, and go over some crazy stories we had. So don't miss it. Right on.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. Today, joined by a very special guest, Mr. George Sotiropoulos, one of the pioneers of the Australian MMA scene, one of the original stars from that side of the world. So, George, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good. So, Enson, you and George go way back from a long time ago. I mean, maybe it's worth just touching on how you guys originally first met.
I think the first time we met was in Guam, yeah, George?
Was in Guam, yeah. I walked into
I
the
remember, if my memory suits me well, the first time we actually met was in the Fuckeye shop.
Yeah, at 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah, wasn't that late? I remember you coming up to me and saying, I think you corresponded with me or something on the UG, the MMA TV, that old forum.
No, I don't think the first time I met you was literally in that shop. It was the only person I spoke to was Roman, leading up to the event, and
Okay.
but then I met you. I'd seen you on the Rites of Passage documentary, and then I was surprised to see you in the store. So I didn't know you were gonna. I don't think I knew you were going to be there, but when you came out, I knew who you were, and I was really surprised.
Oh yeah.
I
Remember, and I remember. I know Rome told me after that you were going to fight that guy. I think it was Sergio. Was it Sergio?
Yeah.
And the guy was supposed to, James. This guy was supposed to be like a badass.
I mean, I think he was a badass.
Yeah, so we were kind of like, I was kind of looking at. I remember meeting George, and George is such a nice guy, and hey, what's up, Enson? We shook hands, and I think, oh my God, is this the guy going to get beaten up by Sergio, man? I was thinking, that was my thought. Oh fuck, this is the guy's going to fight Sergio. Holy shit, man! So that was my first thing on when I met George. But oh my God, when I saw the fight, oh fuck, Sergio was lucky to walk out of that ring in one piece, man. George was like on him, like every second of the match, like and James, it's not like just on him, like putting him in danger one after another, man. We're like, I remember watching ringside, like holy shit, it was an unbelievable fight, man.
Yeah.
What are your memories of the fight, George?
It's actually my favorite fight. My most favorite fight was that fight of my entire fighting career. I just think it was the most competitive match that I had, and it was really give and take. Like the first round was give and take. Like he had me in some situations where I was like, well, I better get out of this. And I was still warming up into the fight, but I was tentative leading into the fight, like I just wasn't comfortable in it was a new environment, and I'd never even heard of Guam until I hadn't even heard of Guam. So like, and then it just was like a foreigner there, and it was just unfamiliar territory. And the first fight, I didn't really like kick it in. I wasn't in gear, and I was kind of like, I was going for stuff but not really committing to it. And then I ended up I tried a couple of takedowns. I ended up slipping, ended up on my back. He almost took my back. He kind of did take my back. He got a hook in. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I better get out of this situation. And I got out of it. Then I put myself back in it again. And then I was warm by the end of the round. I'm like, okay, I better do something here. And it ended up being a really competitive fight. And he, we were both spent. We were both really spent. But he was tough, man. He was very technical. And that guy, I really think, could have had an amazing career if he stuck to it. But I didn't hear him again, and I ended up bumping.
Yeah, I never heard of him after that.
he could have. That guy really could have gone all the way. He was so talented, and I ended up bumping into Vinny Margalez in Las Vegas years later in 2009. No, 2009 or 10, and and I didn't know him, but he goes, "Yeah, you fought my friend Sergio," and I'm like, "Oh man, that guy was tough. What happened to him?" He's, "Oh, he just he went back to Brazil and stopped training." But man, he was tough. He was well rounded. He had good kickboxing. He had he had
Yeah.
amazing Jiu Jitsu. He was tough all around, But I was so like conditioned for that fight. I trained so hard for it. Didn't even know if it was gonna happen. Didn't even know if that fight was gonna happen. Like I remember, like I was on the underground and I saw a thread looking for fighters from the US, and then I responded to it and I said, "How about Australia?" And the guy said, and it was Roman, and he said, "Yeah, send us your resume." So I sent him a resume, and I heard back from him. He goes, "Yeah, sure. This is the date, January 28th." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And we exchanged a couple of emails. Then I didn't hear back from him for weeks, and I'm training. I was training really hard, like just insanely hard, and I would send him emails. "Hey man, what's going on? Is this even going to happen?" Nothing. I didn't hear anything back. And then maybe a week before the fight, he says, "Okay, what's your passport, your ticket, blah, blah." He sent me what I need. I'm like, "Okay, it's really going to happen." But I thought it was, at one point, I thought it was a joke. I thought it wasn't going to happen because I just heard nothing from anyone. Which is tough, because the thing is, you're training so hard for a fight and then you don't even know if it's going to happen. I'm like, is this even real? I thought it was a joke at one point.
Wow. That's how Guam is, though, man. I mean, it could have probably been as easy as they just decided they wanted somebody else, or so. Like the insecurity you had was pretty real, man. Because
it was, but I literally hadn't even heard of Guam up until this fight, and then I looked it up and I'm like, "Oh wow, this was a real place."
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, no, that's how they ran the events. It was really Rome. He worked his ass off and did his best, but he's not like a real promoter with the proper savvy of a promoter. So yeah, it's crazy though, man.
Yeah, they were just like laid back island folk.
Yeah.
And I saw that straight away when I got there. Easygoing, hospitable, good food, hang out, go fishing.
I always describe Guam as like 20 years ago Hawaii.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've never been to Hawaii.
Then you got another whole level in Saipan where like 20 years ago Guam.
Yeah, okay. Which is funny, because little Frank Camacho comes from there and he's tough as hell.
Yeah, Frank Camacho's from Saipan, but I think he resides in Guam now.
Right. Well, he's tough. He was tough as hell then, as a 16 or 17-year-old. It's funny because now I see him fighting.
Yeah, he's in the UFC now.
Yeah. That's crazy though. That of all your fights, you obviously had, a really long career. You had the tough stuff, the UFC stuff, but that's the fight that's the really your favorite fight. That's really cool.
Yeah, he challenged me most in my best area. Like I would like to take the fight to the ground, but he was good there as well, But I was able to get dominant position. I was able to pass his guard, get the mount. I had his arm. I had him in 2 deep submissions, and one of them,
you did.
I had him in an arm lock, which I really thought his arm was gonna, I was trying to break it, not because I was being nasty, but because I just wanted the fight to be over, because he just wouldn't stop, and the fight wasn't going to stop. So I thought, this is the only way the fight will stop is if I break his arm. But he was so flexible, I literally put his hand in his back shoulder, in his opposite. That's how flexible he was. I had a Kimura on so deep that it was behind him on the opposite shoulder, and he was such a Gumby and so flexible that he was able to use the leverage that I had on his shoulder to get to his knees, which then I ended up in a knee bar from it.
Yeah, James. It was like back and forth.
Yeah, I ended up in a knee bar, and then I'm escaping a knee bar. So I'm putting my knee on his hip, trying to peel my leg out. And man, it was crazy. But I had him in another deep armbar. Literally, all I needed to do was sit back and finish. But in my mind, I'm telling myself this story that he's going to escape. You know, he's a Brazilian. He's tricky. So I had him in S mount. My knee was, you know, his shoulder was right in my groin. My knee was up on his head. My other leg was wrapped around his other shoulder. All I had to do was just sit back and finish the arm. And I'm like, nah, he knows what I'm doing. I'm going to switch to the other side and trick him. I gave him room to get out. It just created another scramble. And just the stories I was telling myself, which kind of ruined it. But still, it was still a really good fight because we got to perform. Like we got to showcase every aspect. Like we got to showcase really good striking, some takedowns, and some really good groundwork. And I think the crowd loved it. I mean,
the crowd loved it. That was amazing.
The Islanders
I'm surprised that fight's not highlighted as one of the top fights. I mean, maybe because it was in Guam, it just totally swept under the carpet. But that fight should definitely be a fight that we talked about. You know, when they talk about exciting fights in MMA.
Yeah, that's why it was one of my top five. I think that one's my favorite fight.
Wow, nice. That's pretty cool, man. And that's what got me interested in George. That's when I think my memory's so fucked up, man. But I think I approached you and said if you wanted to come train in Guam, or you asked me. I'm not sure.
You said to me,
Japan.
Yeah, you said something about you said to me you should be fighting in Japan, and I responded with if you get me fights, I'll be there. And you said, hell yeah. I said, well, I'll see you soon. And I came back to Australia. I quit my teaching. I was teaching martial arts. I quit my job and I just left. And I left a month later. I wrapped up whatever I was doing. Had some projects that I was working on. I wrapped them up. I went to Thailand for a month and trained in some different cities there, just because I'd never done any Muay Thai before. And I worked on the limited kicks that I actually hadn't even practiced kicking. Well, I had learned them at a basic level, basic kicks, but hadn't really practiced them. And I went to Thailand for a month, worked on the just the Thai boxing, which I didn't really internalize any of the kicks, but I learned the movements, and I liked the clinching, and I was able to apply that in my fight on your show against the Japanese guy that I fought on Kill or Be Killed, and then I'd later, work on my kicks years later. But that was my intro. Anyway, so I went to Thailand for a month. I saw you. Then we met up in Thailand in my last week of training there, and we hung out for a few days. And I got to know Enson on a personal level, what kind of a jokester he is. And we had some fun there. Like, we literally didn't sleep for 2 days. This guy doesn't sleep. He literally doesn't sleep. And we ended up hanging out for 2 days. And we first thing is, like, we ended up going to a health club opposite Enson's apartment. And we'd go hang out, go do a workout in the morning and so on. I'd go do some Thai boxing later on. But there was one day, there's a guy in the
oh god,
yeah, there's a guy in the health club, and I was on the treadmill watching him while I think Enson was, he was doing biceps or something. We were getting towards the end of our workout, and I see a guy there, like a Westerner. I think he was from England or maybe Canada. I think he was, and he was showing the kickboxing coaches in the gym how to throw kicks, and I could just tell by his body language he's like reprimanding them and how it was to be done. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy's in Thailand and he's trying to tell these Thais how to throw a kick. And I thought it was funny. So I knowing that Enson liked the joke, I thought, hey man, I gave him a nudge and look at this guy, and straight away, like, he was an easy target, but it was more of a way for us to joke around. And I it ended up being nasty for that poor guy. But so anyway, we start talking to the guy, and we start talking about martial arts to him.
Oh, no.
And he starts telling us about martial arts, and he starts showing us how to throw punches and kicks, and he was a little off, But then he starts showing us Jiu Jitsu, and he's trying to tell us what Jiu Jitsu was and show us Jiu Jitsu. And he said to Enson, I think he asked you, had you done Jiu Jitsu? Did you tell him that you had done it?
Yeah,
I think
and yeah, he started talking how great jiu-jitsu was, and we played it off like what?
yeah.
Jiu-jitsu. What is that, jiu-jitsu? And he
So
starts
then, like,
explaining to us jiu-jitsu, and he starts telling us that, I can put you in these locks, I can do this. And then he started talking about the triangle.
Oh,
And
no.
so I was like,
no, wait. So then he's talking about jiu-jitsu, and he starts me because I had cauliflower ears, and he said to me, "Do you do jiu-jitsu?" I said, "No, but you've got your cauliflower ears." I said, "Yeah, I play rugby."
Oh,
Okay, so then he's showing us some submissions from the guard, and he's trying to put an armbar on me, but I'm blocking his hip with my other arm, so it
right,
technically works. And so I'm going along with it, and I'm just pretending that I didn't understand what was happening while I'm blocking his hip. Normally it works, but for some reason it doesn't work on you. And then he's
Jim, when he was putting the armbar on George would just do enough to tuck his elbow just enough for the armbar wouldn't work. Pretending like he doesn't know what he's doing, but when the guy gets the armbar, it's like he just tucks it a little bit, and the guy can't finish the armbar, and he just can't figure out why he can't finish the armbar.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then George goes, "It doesn't hurt. Well, is it supposed to hurt?"
So then somehow we get to our feet and we start standing, and he's showing us the clinch, and he clinches Enson.
Oh, no.
And he's trying to clinch Enson and pull Enson down into a tie clinch, and Enson's not cooperating, so he knees him. He kneed him in the balls.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, the energy shifted straight away. Like it went from like us laughing to like, oh shit. Because but as soon as he need him, like Enson just shifted. It was like, motherfucker, now you're dead. And he went still, like he went still and dead serious. And I'm like, oh no, this poor guy's gonna die right now. So Enson grabs him and he pulls him down into the guard and puts a triangle on him. And the guy's begging, please, I'm sorry. Then Enson starts talking to him in like a Kermit the Frog, like, and he's like giving him noogies on his head that were hard enough to cut him open. So the guy had blood dripping down his head while Enson had him in the triangle. So then I'm wiping the blood off his face with a towel.
That is unreal.
Shit, that's really right. Fun, I forgot. At the end, I got mad at him. That's right. Shit.
Wow. It's hilarious. He just got frustrated and just went low.
The thing is, it was out of character for him because he was a real dweeb. And the thing is, like, he was trying to be the big guy, but showing his ties how to do kickboxing, and then he was trying to show us some clinching, which didn't work. So then he escalated, trying to like put it on Enson.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to go that way,
Poor me, man. This guy can't do anything to George, so he wants to do it to me, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Wow.
Wait, didn't we see him the next day and he realized who we were?
We did. Yeah,
oh,
and
no way.
He had checked you out. He goes, I know you know fighting. He said something to that effect.
He did. He said that. Yeah, I know you. He said that's right.
Wow.
Oh God, I totally, I freaking forgot how that ended, man. I remember the biggest part of my memory on that is when he was trying to do the armbar on you and you wouldn't let him do it. You were kind of just real subtly not letting him do it. And
the thing is, like,
so confused.
The thing is, like, he had my arm and it was fully inside his hips, but I was using my other arm to push on his hips, so he couldn't drive his hips up. I was leaning inside and I was looking at him going, "What are you doing?"
yeah.
Oh, man,
that was hilarious. That's right. That happened when you were in Thailand. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It was a kind of situation where he was like an easy target. We could joke around with him, but it went further than what it should have.
Well.
It did.
I'm sure he learned a valuable lesson that day, right? Maybe not to enforce your will on other people. So
Yeah.
I wonder if that guy was watching like UFC or something and saw George on it or something. Oh my God, that's the fucking
yeah,
guy.
he must have one day must have seen you surely. And
He
just
gotta
thought,
have. He got. If he was into
yeah,
the sport, like Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu, he's gotta have
Yeah,
been into
and he was showing us he was training for his taekwondo grading. He was doing his forms. Remember, he showed
That's
it. I
right.
think he showed us his forms in the gym. It was just we had some laughs with that guy. Like I don't think he knew we were laughing, but he was funny.
maybe he'll watch this podcast.
Maybe,
You know?
maybe.
So switching gears kind of a bit, you mentioned obviously like fighting in Japan and fighting on and Enson being in your corner. Well, the fight I wanted to ask about was the Aoki fight, right? Because
Yeah.
you guys were both so good on the ground, and then when you go back and you watch the fight, obviously it kind of starts that way, but then it ends so you know what I mean? I wanted to see the rest of that fight.
It was really anticlimactic the way it ended.
Yeah.
I still think to this day that my foot didn't hit his groin; it hit the inside of his leg, and I think that was his way out of the fight.
Really?
Yeah, I really think that was his way out of the fight because I think his knockout punch was that heel hook. That was his knockout punch, and the thing is, I thought he was going to get it when he first went for it, but I was so flexible that when he put I think he had me in 50-50, which I didn't really know what it was at the time, but he put it on, my foot literally turned 180 degrees the other way, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'm all right. So I thought I'll turn out of this. So I turned out of it and was able to finally escape. But I think that for him, that frustration of not getting the stub was a way of quitting for him. I don't know, that's what I think, because when I kicked him, it didn't hit the groin. I think it's in the inside of the leg.
Yeah, you must know as a fighter, right? Like the feeling of hitting a cup to hitting the leg. So.
Didn't hit a cup.
Yeah.
I think did it happen twice in a row? It did, yeah.
No, just once. Just once. It was just
right at
one kick.
as soon as the second round starts, right? It's like
second round, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it certainly took the air out of the room.
It was the beginning of the second round, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I remember people having. I remember there was like a little talk that people were assuming that I told you to kick him in the balls or something. Because I think we were talking I was talking to you in the corner after the first round.
Yeah.
And then straight when the bell rang, George walked right over and just blasted him. And then inside leg kick, and then he fell to the ground. It was like straight walk to it, boom, kicked him.
And
so
the thing is, you can't see it from the angle because my foot's inside his leg, but the camera's on the outside of his leg, so you can't really see where the kick lands because it's not a clear shot of the body or the groin. So anyway, I remember we left the fight, and it was like, man, it was like a nothing. It ended up being a nothing. Like we ended up in the parking lot of a McDonald's eating burgers after the fight, and it was so anticlimactic.
Yeah,
we trained so hard for that too.
Yeah, really hard.
Was there ever a talk of a rematch in that fight at all, or like a grappling match or anything like that? Or
no.
Interesting. I'm guessing you wouldn't have been opposed to it, but maybe he might have been.
No, I wasn't opposed to it. I wouldn't have been opposed.
That would have been a good match because with George's grappling and Aoki's grappling, that would have been like a nice. I would have loved to see that mixture. Aoki had his strong points, but George's overall game was real solid, and George totally we worked on all the types of attacks that Aoki does. And you worked with Tokito in my gym, yeah?
Yeah.
I know you're working with Tokito every day. I mean,
yeah.
George James, George is a training monster. I don't know anybody who trains as much as George.
How about now, George?
Unbelievable.
Do you still train as much? I know obviously you're retired and that, but you've got your own gym, right, as well?
Yeah, I do.
Omega.
Yes, I do. Yes, yeah. Yeah, yeah. He was my main training partner. We worked out every day, like all the time. He was my
Yeah.
size. We just hit it off. He was a real nice kid, real good guy, just a good, straight Japanese guy, and he was fun to train with.
He's still training today.
Yeah. Is he one of
He's
the
still
main coaches at the gym?
Yeah, he teaches. He's the main Jiu Jitsu coach at PUREBRED now.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just a question for both of you guys, because you guys were both fighters and then sort of transitioned into doing things like coaching. How do you guys find that sort of move to being, all the focus is on yourself as fighters, and then actually suddenly you're having to give it to someone else?
How do you feel, George?
It's fun. I mean, it's how I make my living. I enjoy martial arts, so it's fun to see people progress and improve. Like they come in as total beginners. They got no idea about what they're doing, but some people learn faster than others. But it's just after a while, as long as they stick to it, you start to see progress, and it's fun to see that.
And you, Enson?
I like it, man. I like it because it's so much easier, man. It's like you make that guy work out. Like I'm in the car right now because I just finished. You remember the circuit training we used to do, George?
Yeah.
The full body workout, all in like 40 minutes. So we just ran Tsuyoshi, one of my heavyweight fighters, through the circuit training. I jumped in every 5 exercises we do a little bit of mitts and grappling.
Yeah.
So I jumped in some of that, but it's like a minute mitts, a minute ground, and then he goes straight back to the weights again. So I jumped in on it. So I mean, I had a minute of hard sparring, and then he had like 49 minutes of hard workout. So for me, I mean, I think I trained so much when I fought that I don't miss the training at all. So for me, training other fighters, it's more enjoyable because it's not. I mean, before, man, if I had to go do circuit, man, I'm already mentally preparing from the morning. I know I'm going to have to kill myself in that training.
Yeah.
But today in the morning in the training, I'm feeding my fish. I'm walking the dogs, cleaning the yard, and I'm like, oh, gotta go training. It's like there's so much less stress. And right now, for me, training is all part of just staying in shape and staying healthy.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I like it.
I love it, man. It is consuming. It's consuming, like like your conditioning, your cardio, your technique, your grappling, your sparring, your kickboxing sparring, like your wrestling, breaking it all up into different groups. And then your diet, you're always always hungry, you're always tired, you're always you're fatigued, you're like everything's like a drag. But the thing is, like, I was used to it for so long that I just didn't know any other way, and I enjoyed it.
Do you miss competing at all, George? When
Yeah,
you see fights like that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
I mean, I competed a couple weeks ago in some grappling tournaments. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I competed in the Australian qualifier for the Oceania the ADCC trials for Oceania 2 weeks ago.
How'd you do?
I had a really competitive match, but I got beat. I got beat by another guy, but and then a week before that, I grappled in another event, just a local grappling event, and I had some competitive matches there as well.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with me, but I enjoy. I feel like I'm a fan of fighting now. I enjoy watching.
Yeah,
there was talk of Sakura actually talked to me about wanting me to do the quintet, like me making a team and then entering quintet.
Right.
And yeah, I'm interested in that, but I know for myself, if I were to enter in quintet, I would have to drop like 6 months of my schedule, and I would just balls out be grappling every day. And I'm not, you know, I'm up for it, but I'm not sure if I really want to do that. You know, I mean, there's so much things that I'm doing now that I don't know if I'd want to drop everything. Or,
It's consuming. It's so consuming. Your whole life is consumed by what you're doing. It's hard to do. It's
yeah,
hard to
because
do
you know,
anything.
like George and I, we're not the type of guy that want to go into a fight or any type of competition half-assed. We're gonna make sure we're gonna be a full-on ready. So it takes a lot of time to prepare for these things. And
Yeah,
for me, I'd have to
especially
drop a lot of shit that I'm doing, man.
yeah, and there's like the grappling has changed so much in the last decade. It's not the same game it was anymore. It's like the leg
How,
locks, the chokes, the guards. It's different. It's a more evolved game now.
I remember
That's
a couple, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had a talk about the old school and the new school, how you were adapting to it. How are you doing with that now? Because I remember when I talked to you, I was having a hard time adapting to the new school, thinking if should I change my style to the new school, or should I try and force my old school pressure style into the new school? I remember we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, like the new school guys they can sit back and do nothing in like they can use like the Z guard and just to hold you off, and then basically they can survive and just survive in that position. It makes it hard to pass. You know, so that's what I see. Like at this event I went to, I saw guys not really trying to pass the guard. There wasn't really much pressure. Like I didn't see pressure. I didn't see any pressure passing. But I did see fancy techniques. I did see a lot of like a lot of guard pulling and leg locks, which the game has evolved a lot there, and the chokes as well. Like Marcelo Garcia style chokes, all the leg entanglements. That's where the game has gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you adapted to the new school, or are you still trying to stay with the old school style?
I'm trying to adapt to the new school. I'm trying to like add it into my game because I'm still training with my students and teaching them. So I'm trying to adapt it and pick it up.
I guess
really
when you're teaching Jiu Jitsu, you would have to learn the new stuff, because a lot of the new school students want to learn the new stuff. Yeah.
You have to. Yeah. I mean, I want to learn it as a practitioner for my own self.
It's just crazy how that the sport of Jiu Jitsu is forever changing at a very fast pace. It's unbelievable.
It's endless. They're two different sports now. It's the original Jiu-Jitsu, the classic Jiu-Jitsu pass and sweep is no longer pass and sweep, and now it's like it's attack the legs and submit. It's the game of pass and sweep. It's not so much the game anymore.
Yeah, it's a whole different game. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that doesn't really get touched on. I mean, I always hear like, oh, how MMA's evolved, the level's so much higher. Like, it just keeps getting higher, and the fights keep getting better. But I haven't really heard people talk about that specifically about grappling in terms of the old school style versus the new school style. So
shit, some of the shit you see the new school style is doing is just unbelievable. Like the old school guys, like when I used to do jiu-jitsu, I remember when I was on the mat, when I used to do jiu-jitsu, I felt confident that there was nothing on the mat that anyone could do that surprised me. But now I watch the basic class that my student Toquitos teaches, and the basic classes are tripping me out. Like, holy shit, you can do that. Oh, you can do that. It's unreal.
Yeah, but on the flip side, a lot of this stuff is dangerous in MMA because your head is exposed. So the sport has gone down. The sport has become such a sport that it's like it's lost its roots in fighting. Although the ADCC rules are trying to keep it towards fighting because they're trying to it favors. They've really made an effort to implement the rules of wrestling, passivity, shooting for the takedown, not pulling guard, the penalization if you do pull guard, which favors MMA, which I think that's the idea of it. So people fight for the takedown, top position, passing, and so on. But you're still getting guys who just band and they will just pull guard and look for the feet. I mean, I thought guys sitting down and just looking for each other's ankles. So again, like, is it really going to happen in MMA? They can be struck in the head. So it's not really practical. But you do see guys going for legs, like Gary Turner fought recently, and he was going after the guy's legs. And I think he put up a great fight, but he ended up getting knocked out because he kept going for the legs and his head was exposed, and the guy took advantage of it. But again, it's like going after, being so single-minded, going after that one submission, he left himself vulnerable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously one championship now looking like doing like a grappling division. I think it's quite interesting to see that. If we see that more in MMA promotions, right, where you might have grappling divisions, it kind of makes it feel more separate. Which I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Where it becomes something, like you say, completely separate from MMA.
It's its own sport now. It's its own sport. Gi Jiu-Jitsu is its own sport, and so is no gi. They're just their own. It's its own animal. Like the classic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu touches on both. Gi, no gi. The game was very similar, whether you had the gi on or not. Pass, sweep, submit. But now, like sitting, going for the ankles, it's not congruent with fighting.
Yeah.
But like you have all these chokes, these guillotines. I think they're effective in any game. The Marcelo Garcia style of jiu-jitsu, I think that can be implemented straight into MMA. And so can the leg locks from certain positions, as long as your head's not exposed. As long as you pick your position and pick your battle, not go after it blindly or at the cost of your own safety. Like the thing is, even whenever I fought, I was always weary of my head. Like if my head was ever, I remember one of my fights in Australia. Like I had a dominant position. I lost the dominant position, and then I ended up in turtle with the guy behind me, and I knew my head was exposed. So I poked my head under my body and rolled back to guard because I knew he could hit me. Like I'm not going to leave my head hanging out there, knowing that it can be struck if I'm on the ground. The same way you should do if you're standing.
Yeah.
So, George, I kind of mentioned when we first started this, being one of the original stars from your side of the world in terms of MMA. I'm curious. I mean, we're heading into a UFC this weekend. Obviously, this is going to air after that's happened, but you got Adesanya from New Zealand, obviously Volkanovski. You got huge stars coming out of your side of the world. Did you kind of foresee that coming?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't think, because when I was doing it, there wasn't much interest in it. And when I would fight, when I was fighting, I'm from Victoria, and I'd fighting. My fights were in Queensland up north. I'd go to a different state. A lot of the crowd was booing because they didn't like to go to the ground. I'd take my opponents down. I'd look for the submissions, dominating. The crowd didn't like it, so they weren't familiar with the grappling. But when I came back to UFC 110 several years later, they were good for me. But by then they'd been following the sport more. There was more of an understanding of jiu-jitsu. They understood the sweeps. And like I remember, when I swept Joe Daddy, the crowd went wild. But years earlier, it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way, James. 10 years, about 12 years ago. I know New Zealand and Australia are totally different places, but when I went to New Zealand, I got stopped in immigration. The guy at immigration asked me what I do for a living, and I told him I'm a mixed martial artist. And you know what his response to me was?
What?
Oh, so you abuse people for a living? And I was really surprised, because that's the type of attitude we had in America like 15 years prior. Like human cockfighting, you're barbaric if you fight MMA. And by that time, 15 years later, MMA has been understood it was a sport. When I went into New Zealand, the immigration officers still had that little bit of a tinge of MMA is barbaric kind of thing. I was like, wow, you guys are like way back. And when I talked to the people who brought me into New Zealand, they were saying, yeah, New Zealand is still like doesn't really accept MMA yet, and that was just only about 10 to 12 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to the UK though, because for like 10, 12 years ago, you talk to people about UFC and they're like, oh, you know, that barbaric cage fighting. I think Australia and UK have kind of been on that same sort of. It's taken a while. I think it was only since sort of Connor is when people started to realize what UFC was and what MMA was, to be honest. So it takes a while.
It's a lot more mainstream.
With that said, I guess as much as Connor's a shit talker and kind of a little bit annoying, he actually does. He did it good for the sport, huh?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Especially on this side of the world, where before it was never taken seriously. But then, you know, when they see him fighting, because boxing's huge over here, right? So when they see him fighting Mayweather, that kind of changed things.
George, how do you like the movement of MMA nowadays? Because back in our day, there was no shit talking. We really didn't make much money, but nowadays, like, these guys are like, you can tell them they act like they hate each other before the fight, but then they hug after the fight and they talk shit, bringing religion, family into it. You know, like I told James, back in my day, someone talks shit about my family at the press conference. It's going on right there. There's no fight. The fight's over. You insult my family. Fight means shit. You know, people kind of say, "Oh, you're gonna fight because you insult your family. You're so stupid. Now you can't fight." It's like the fight means way less to me than my family. You know, I mean, but nowadays, you know, George, it's like, it's about entertainment. It's about selling the fight. They'll do anything to sell the fight. I mean, do you like that, George, or do you not like it?
I personally don't like it. I wouldn't do it. But now when I see guys do it and, you know, they call someone out, I think they're doing the right thing, because it's like, it's setting them up for their next fight, and it's a good way to make money and, you know, progress your career, because it can be a career. It is a career. And, they're doing the right thing. But if you sit there and say nothing, you're not putting yourself in the best possible position. But with McGregor, I like what he did, because you know what, he made it. He's the one. He's the winner. He won.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do it, but I mean, he did.
It's funny because I feel we're hypocritical about it, because I don't like that. Of course, I would never do that. But one, I am super stoked that the sport that made me who I am today is one of the biggest sports in the world now. And two, I find myself being caught up in the shit talk. You know, like I watched at the last UFC fight night. You know, there was no shit talk. It was like kind of like I didn't even want to see a fight. And then all of a sudden, when I watched the press conference today, and you see Adesanya start going off with they're not even fighting, but Sean Strickland and Adesanya start going off at each other. I'm like, I want to see that fight now. So the stuff that I gawk about, I'm actually caught up in. I can see why fans want to see it, because now I want to see Adesanya and Strickland. You know, I mean, was that a play to just get a fight or what? But just that animosity and that shit talk, it creates that story that every human being is interested in seeing. So I am also guilty of that. I want to see that fight now.
Yeah. It doesn't make me want to watch a fight because I saw someone talking shit. It's like it's not going to make me. But look, the only reason I buy a pay-per-view, which is frequent, or watch a fight night, is because I just want to see the fights. As a martial artist, that's to see what's going, because I just enjoy fighting and what's working, what's not working, and you know where the game's going. And you know, that's why I watch the fights. You know, but I mostly watch UFC. I don't watch all the other events.
How do you think John Jones is going to be in the heavyweight division?
I think he'll do great. I think he'll do the way he's done in the past. He'll be consistent with what he's done in the past, because he's talented, and I don't think he's faced too much adversity in his fights. He's dominated most of his fights, you know, and the fights that he won by decision. I mean, he had some close fights, but he's come out clean.
I think the biggest adversity he faced was Gustafsson.
Yeah, and the Reyes fight as well, right? So
yeah, Reyes, but I think John Jones usually comes out clean, but his face with Gustafsson was busted up. They went at each other. I mean, I think that's the for me, I think that's the fight that John Jones took the most beating.
I
Yeah.
think Reyes kind of won that fight as well. I think Reyes won that fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can't remember the Gustafsson fight. I don't know if I saw that one, but definitely the Reyes. I thought Reyes outboxed him.
Just while we're talking UFC, and obviously by the time people see this, the fights will have already happened. But can I get some predictions from you guys on the top 2 main events? So if we talk Holloway and Volkanovski, and which is kind of interesting, right? Considering where you guys are from. Let's start there.
But being biased, I want Holloway to win, so I think Holloway's going to win. But being non-biased, I don't think anybody's going to beat Volkanovski for a while, man. So honestly, I don't think. That guy's just such a workhorse. He's just well-rounded. I mean, if anything, his weakness might be being taken down on the ground. But Max is not a ground fighter. You know, I want Max to win, but I don't think he'll be able to do it. What do you think, George?
I think Volkanovski's too tough.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately.
Solid. He's just solid kickboxing, solid wrestling,
and his cardio is amazing.
He's just tough. He's not going to have a problem. I don't see too many people putting him in a bad situation.
Yeah.
And how about Adesanya versus Cannonier?
What do you think about that, George?
I'm not sure. I probably Adesanya, but I haven't really followed the other guy. I've seen him fight, but I think Adesanya will probably win that. Just going with the odds.
I agree with George. I think Adesanya is probably technically much better, but I think if Cannonier would fight a lot like Gastelum, like coming right in and throwing big punches, and Cannonier is a power puncher. If he lands a punch on, as we know in kickboxing, Adesanya was knocked out, so he's knockoutable, and his smaller gloves, so Cannonier has the power to do that. Will he have the fight style to, like Gastelum, to get inside and land punches on Adesanya? Has Adesanya learned so much from Gastelum that he will never let that happen again? I mean, Adesanya's a technician. I mean, he's like a freak. The stuff he does is almost like, like Anderson Silva. They throw kicks from nowhere. They'll be out of balance, but still get a nice straight up kick to your face. So, I think if I had to bet my house on it, I would bet Adesanya. But if I wanted to try and take a long shot and make big money on an underdog, I think Cannonier's a really good bet for that, because he has that one punch knockout power.
Yeah, he really does.
What about you, James? What do you think about those two fights?
I would pick Adesanya, just because I think he'll outmove. I think he's got the movement right against Cannonier. I think Cannonier, like you say, he can load up and could get a knockout. But I just think Adesanya's too technical. We'll sort of foresee his movements coming. I think he's quite good at sort of predicting his opponent's movement. And then it's hard to pick against Volkanovski, right? Even though Holloway looks so good in that fight with Yair Rodriguez, wasn't it? I love that fight. That was probably one of my favorite fights all year. But yeah, so I have to go Volkanovski, just because I think Volkanovski, he's been more active. Holloway's had the injuries as well, but yeah, I mean, you guys know better. You guys did it yourselves. So I mean, there's injuries. How much do you when people come back from injuries, do you think that's kind of something that needs to be factored in, or do you?
George, what do you think? I don't think I've ever came back from an injury. I think I've just never been really injured, man.
I think it depends on the spirit of the fighter. The thing is, like, even though I had injuries, I was still in condition, still physically equipped. So I don't think it really, despite it, because the thing is, even I came back from an ACL tear, and that was in 2008, and I went on a 7-fight, 6 whatever fight win streak I went on, and I was out for 18 months. So it didn't, my desire was so great that it didn't affect the time off. Didn't affect me. I was training so hard. I was just in the gym all day from morning until night. Didn't affect me. So it just depends where his spirit and soul is. That's what I think it's going to come down to.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And then just one of the things, George, that I think a lot of sort of more casual fans will remember you from is obviously your Ultimate Fighter days. You were obviously as a contestant, but also a coach as well when you did Oz versus UK. I just wanted to get kind of your take of your experience on the show, and maybe just kind of with reality TV, you kind of hear like how they made them do this, made them do that. Was that kind of your experience on Ultimate Fighter, or did they kind of like this is how it is?
Nobody made anybody do anything. But the thing is, like, one thing I noticed, one thing I saw from being both a contestant and a coach was the producers of the show are always trying to make a story, and it's kind of corny because when I was on season 6, they were trying to spin off a story that Matt Hughes and the farm boy and he's now his new protege. It's really stupid, but they just want a story. And then when I was a coach, they were trying to do that with me. Who's like you? And I'm like, fucking no one's like me. They're their own people, But I could see like they were trying to create a series of questions in the interviews on both shows to try guide the reality into being a certain way, and for us to confirm it through the interviews. And I could see where it was going, and I wouldn't buy into it. I'm like, no, they're their own people. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I saw the same kind of pattern happening with the producers on both shows, which were totally different teams. One was American, one was Australian, and but they were still trying to use the same line of questioning to create that story. Which is it's the thing is it's like buying into the bullshit before a fight where the guys are hating each other, and that's not why I watch the fight. I watch it because I want to see the martial arts, because I want to see the fight, not because I want to see he's saying this and he's saying that. That part doesn't bother me. That does not interest me one ounce, but it might interest the general fan.
So what you saw in the filming on the reality show when you're filming it, and you saw the final cut, was it pretty much what happened, or did they twist a lot of stuff?
I don't know what specifically. Was there something specific?
I don't know, because I think it was Ronda Rousey. I think said something about it's not even near what you did. Change a lot of shit. I mean, I think she had a gripe about it.
Right. Yeah, I think they do change the order of things to like focus on a certain person. Like every time somebody fights, every time like they will focus the episode on the fighters. Kind of like the promotion of before someone fights, they focus on that fighter. So so whoever's fighting, that episode will be about those fighters. So the order or sequence of events might be different. Something might happen later on, but they'll cut it and put it back here.
That makes sense. Though that makes sense.
Yeah. It sounds like it's pretty legit though, like compared to maybe other reality shows where they're pretty much scripting it, right? So it's quite cool that at least they keep it pretty authentic, even if they're maybe trying to like guide the stories a bit. But
yeah, there is some guiding of the story.
Well, that's understood though. As a reality TV show, they want to create the most interesting show, so that's understood.
Yeah.
George, I've got sort of one final question. I was just curious. I mean, did you ever think about, after you finished your run with the UFC, did you ever consider going back to Japan to have a fight?
No, I didn't. But it's not. I'm not opposed to it. But no, I didn't. I mean, I thought about fighting there again, but it's not my priority. Not my priority right now.
Cool. Enson, you got anything else you want to add before we start to sort of wrap the episode up?
No, but just the fact that George is an Australian, I've never been to Australia yet, so I'm
Come
definitely
on
going to
down.
have to make. I'm definitely going to
We're
make a
always
trip out there one day, and when we hang
in.
out, George, it's going to be funny because I'm on a totally different spectrum of my life now. I mean, if we're going to hang out, we're going to go have a good dinner, maybe listen to some music somewhere quiet, and then go home early and get some rest. You know, for like when me and George used to hang out back in the day, it was about girls. Let's go. Where's the clubs? Let's do that. Wow, we're gonna do that. It was like a continuous adventure-seeking lifestyle, and now it's like I just want to do like what's most relaxing, listen to some music, relax. You know, I mean, hang out. Catch up, and you know, life is. I believe my life is on its twilight years now, and I'm enjoying it, man. I don't, you know, I can have a Yakuza guy come and I had a Yakuza guy like about 6 months ago talk shit about me to somebody. And back in the day, I remember I'd fucking go get in my car, drive down to the guy's house, drag him out of his house, you know. Well, I just let it go. And it's like, I'd rather just stay home and watch some TV, you know. It's like, so I'm looking forward to going to Australia. I'm looking forward to seeing George again in person, hanging out with him. I mean, I consider George a really good friend, and it's funny because no matter how long we don't see each other, when I see George again and we start talking, it's like yesterday he was
Nothing
waiting
changed,
outside in the car for hours in the casino for me to come out.
That's true. Like we'd go to the casino. I couldn't hang there. I just would go back and sleep in the car, wait for him to finish.
Really? Wow.
That was one of my threats to George. Like, if you don't behave, I'm gonna take you to the casino with me. And he's like, "Fuck no!"
But he literally doesn't sleep. Like when we met up in Thailand for the last few days of my trip, I swear I don't think we slept. I probably slept maybe 3 to 6 hours over a 48-hour period. I was exhausted at the time, so we ended up catching a flight from Thailand to Japan. We didn't sleep on the flight. From the airport, we go straight to a Shudo event. From Shudo, he drops me off at the apartment. It wasn't even a bed. I slept on the floor. I slept on a wooden floor and woke up in the morning, like 10 hours later. I slept on the floor. That I was so tired, it didn't even matter where I slept.
That's funny. Yeah, we had someone that you know as well. We had Brent Nicholson on the podcast, and nice. He was telling stories about that sort of time as well, of Enson never sleeping and was sleeping at traffic lights or something, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, power naps. I live on power naps.
Yeah.
Actually, George, I try to get at least 6 hours a night now.
Oh wow! What happened?
Yeah. If I'm lucky, I get 7 or 8 sometimes, man. I know ideal is 7 or 8 in the night, and I'm trying to do that for health reasons. But man, fuck, I mean, back in the day when I was hanging out with George, it was like 3 to 4 hours a night, man. If
Crazy.
even.
That's about right.
But next time we're in Australia, we'll sleep long nights and have very relaxing days.
Yeah, I was so mad, man. I was so mad. This guy does not sleep.
You know what's funny, James? Whenever I hang out with guys, they're always a lot younger than me. But no matter how young they are, 3 days and they were down, and I was still going.
Exhausted. You kill me. You gotta let me sleep, man.
You had fun, right, George? You had fun, right?
We had some laughs, man. We had some laughs.
Does it feel like quite a long time ago, that time in your life, George?
It feels like it was yesterday. It feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like that too. George hasn't. I mean, it's so nice to see that we both really haven't changed much. I think we're pretty much. When people look at each other like 20 years later and then they say you haven't changed much, it's a real good sign, because it means that we haven't let life catch up with us. We haven't let life influence us to become different people. We're being real about who we are. I've been real, and I will always be real to the day I die. And it's good to see, George is the same George, man. I mean, the turtle man, the little turtle man.
Awesome. Well, George, before we wrap up, is there anything you wanted to plug or anything like that at all?
Nah, just I guess that's my gym. My gym's Omega Jiu Jitsu and MMA. It's in Melbourne. It's maybe 5 to 10 minutes from the city. It's in Collingwood. OmegaMMA.com.au. That's my only plug. Come do some training.
And I
Awesome.
can vouch for it. If you guys are in that area and you guys want to learn jiu-jitsu from, I mean, George's technique is like impeccable. I mean, I learned from George. George has some amazing technique. So if you guys want to learn some straight up hardcore technique in jiu-jitsu, you guys gotta go check out Omega. I'm gonna go check that out soon. Someday I want to go down there and check out George's gym, man, for sure.
Awesome.
Always welcome.
All right, man. That was cool, man, catching up with George. We have so much we've been through. There's a bond that's been created between George and I. And I hope you enjoyed it, man. Like, subscribe, and thank you for supporting the channel. Right on, guys.